The story is famous. Jesus, alone in the desert, fasting for 40 days, tempted by the devil with food, power, and glory. But what if that never happened? According to the Urantia Book, Jesus' time of seclusion was not about starvation, but preparation. And the so-called temptation was not a duel with a red-horned Satan, but a confrontation with the cosmic rebels of a universe-wide insurrection: Lucifer, Satan, and their allies. This wasn't a private test of appetite or pride. It was a cosmic showdown with implications for the entire world. The Gospels describe Jesus fasting for 40 days in the wilderness, leaving him weak and vulnerable. The devil appears, offering stones turned to bread, kingdoms of the earth, and divine rescue from a leap of faith. But the Urantia Book paints a very different picture. Jesus was not starving. He was not hallucinating. He was not bargaining with a single demon. He had secluded himself deliberately after his baptism by John in order to clarify his mission. This was not about physical weakness. It was about spiritual clarity. In solitude, he mapped out how he would begin his public ministry, how he would present himself, how he would avoid falling into the traps of fame, politics, or worldly power. The stage was not a desert of hunger, but a retreat of purpose. To understand what happened next, we must step back, far back, into the cosmic story. Long before Jesus walked the earth, a rebellion had shaken the very order of the universe. Lucifer, once a brilliant administrator, declared independence from the divine rule. He claimed that God's authority was an illusion, that creatures could govern themselves without divine oversight. He promised freedom, but his rebellion fractured worlds and enslaved countless souls. Satan, his lieutenant, carried the insurrection further, spreading doubt and corruption. Caligastia, the so-called planetary prince of Earth, joined the revolt, betraying his trust over this very planet. By the time Jesus began his mission, Earth was scarred by this rebellion, still feeling the aftershocks of betrayal. And Jesus, a divine son completing his final incarnation, carried the authority to confront it once and for all. In his seclusion, Jesus was visited, but not by a single devil, by representatives of the rebellion. Lucifer, Satan, and Caligastia presented him with proposals. Not temptations of food or a stunt from a temple, but cosmic bargains. They urged him to seize the world by force, to display his divinity in dazzling ways, to shortcut the patient work of love with raw power. They invited him to compromise, to accept elements of their freedom doctrine in exchange for worldly dominance. But Jesus refused them all. He declared that his mission was not to prove God's authority through force, but to reveal God's love through living. He would not coerce belief. He would not align with rebellion. He would not deviate from the slow, human path of service. In that confrontation, Jesus made his final decision. He would complete his mission as a man among men, without calling on divine powers to shield him. The result of this confrontation was decisive. Lucifer and his allies were stripped of any claim over Earth. their rebellion was sealed as doomed, awaiting only the passage of time for its final resolution. Jesus emerged not weakened, but strengthened. He had rejected every shortcut, every compromise, every appeal to pride or fear. His decision reaffirmed the way of love, patience, and service, the very core of his gospel. The traditional biblical story makes the temptation personal: hunger, pride, ambition, but it was, in fact, universal. This was not only Jesus' test, it was Earth's liberation. From that moment, the authority of the rebels was broken. Humanity was no longer under their shadow in the same way. But there's an irony here. Just as in his own day, many failed to recognize the true nature of his mission. They preferred stories of miracles, legends of devils, and myths of spectacle. The real victory, the quiet choice to embrace God's will above all else, was largely unseen. And perhaps the same irony persists. If Jesus walked the earth today, proclaiming his gospel of inner faith and simple love, many who call themselves his followers might resist him, even betray him, just as religious leaders did 2,000 years ago. The story of Jesus' temptation is more than a duel in the desert. It is the cosmic turning point of a rebellion that began long before Bethlehem. It was not about food or pride. It was about freedom, authority, and the very future of this world. Jesus emerged victorious, not by dazzling power or instant glory, but by choosing faith, patience, and love. And in that choice, he revealed the way for all of us. Not the way of shortcuts, fear, or domination, but the way of trust in God and service to others. And it remains. This was the true triumph in the wilderness, and it remains the triumph that shapes the destiny of our world.